If you want to be fully up to date on all the Black Ship stories, head over to vox9.io right now to listen. After Patreon, it's the most up-to-date platform for the Black Ship stories, as well as other greats like The Human from a Dungeon, Billy Bob, Space Trucker, and so many more. Now back to the story.
Rankov, Capital City, Rankar. Flush them out! Flush them out! Don't let them get a foothold! I don't want a single one of them hiding in the shadowy corners of this city, cried out Salazar Reed as he fired from the cover provided by a collapsed statue of a mighty bear with a sword on its maw that once stood proudly at the center of a plaza. The automated turrets whisked about, firing focused laser beams at running pirates desperately searching for cover. The shields of the one at the tail of a group of 5 collapsed. The armor protected him for a few moments more until he was split in half, and he fell to the ground, shouting in agony, trying to crawl away while charred, smoking entrails were left behind. The pirate came to a halt, its screams dying as life left its body mere seconds later. 2 more pirates fell in short order as their shields collapsed and a hail of bullets tore them to shreds. His heavy units fired their grenade launchers, landing on the entrance of a local guard and enforcer station, now devoid of its previous occupants. Several pirates jumped away, seeing the projectiles, but for some it was too late. The explosions claimed the lives of at least 4 more pirates and injured or incapacitated a few others. 2 Marines closed the distance using their jump packs, plasma swords in hand, and ignited. They landed in the midst of the stunned pirates before the dust could settle, claiming 5 lives with only a few strikes of their swords. Their shields flared as they moved out of the way, taking cover as bullets were fired from within the station. "Dongo now!" Salazar ordered. One of the adolescents moved out from cover, followed by 2 auxilia members covering his flanks as they approached the entrance of the station. Salazar watched as Dongo readied the large weapon in his hands, the long barrel aimed down the obscured hallway even as bullets flew out. With the squeeze of a trigger, the hallway was inundated by swirling flames that quickly overflowed into every available space. The hail of bullets from within came to a halt, replaced by the roar of sudden heat escaping through every available exit as fire consumed all that it could. Marines and auxilia moved away as the fires grew, while Dongo kept pouring in more flames. From the second floor, flames erupted through the windows. Seconds later, several pirates, engulfed in all-consuming fire, jumped out, screaming in agony as they tried to extinguish the flames covering them. "Let them burn! Let them burn!" cried out Dongo with a cruel smirk as he lowered his flamethrower, earning several cheers from his reformed comrades. Salazar looked on at the dozen pirates screaming on the ground as they writhed in pain, their movements quickly becoming lethargic until they stopped and their screams ended. There was satisfaction to be found in their deaths that he couldn't deny or ignore. Perhaps there would be pity in other circumstances, or even something as luxurious as mercy to grant them a quick death. But for them, nothing. Not after what he'd seen them do. Not after losing Umbelio in the first engagement and Fotocas to a sniper less than an hour ago. He'd commanded men into battle before for quick operations or in training runs, both in training chambers and mock battles. He'd killed before, seen auxilia die, and seen grave injuries. But nothing like what he was seeing now. Nothing to this magnitude. How could raiding a small asteroid colony or a hidden rebel outpost compare to the devastation before his eyes? Not to mention the losses they'd suffered. Rejoicing in their suffering was natural, but it wasn't the time for it. "Area secured. We need to keep moving and secure Captain Deshire's right flank," he began to order, but was cut off as a screeching sound pierced through his comms link. Everyone winced simultaneously from the sudden abruptness of what could only be a powerful scrambler in action. "Form up! Take positions!" the staff sergeant shouted as loudly as he could, fearing that a counterattack would soon commence. Marines leading auxilia squads took positions with the commoners at the front, securing their noble leaders' flanks as weapons were trained all around them. Declan took a defensive position near abandoned vehicles with his servants covering his flanks. The distant echoes of gunshots, explosions, running engines, and general chaos reached his ears as he gripped his assault rifle tightly, ready to fire at the first enemy dumb enough to show itself. At the corner of his vision, he saw other auxilia groups backed up by Yakanti, ready to spring into action once more. They'd been fighting for nearly 4 hours in a continuous advance with little to no rest. After the first encounter, they had engaged another dozen smaller pirate groups, intercepting and destroying them wholesale. Casualties and fatalities had been kept to a minimum, with sporadic shuttle rides retrieving gravely injured Marines and auxilia, delivering much-needed ammunition, power cells, and other supplies. Declan had lost count of how many lowly pirates had been expunged from the Principality's domain, yet they displayed dogged determination driven by desperation to hold any ground whatsoever. Rankar's local defense forces, what little remained of them after the initial invasion force hit ground and proceeded to enact their slaughter, were pressing from the outside, encircling their enemies between two forces and reducing their claimed ground street by street. Pirates were nothing if not cruel mongrels devoid of decency. Thousands of captured commoners were used against them as shields, or unleashed in a similar manner as the first group had resorted to, infecting them with insanity. A terrible cocktail of drugs that only a deranged soul could classify as a combat drug. That, if it didn't kill the user by popping veins, arteries, and in some cases their heart, the immense rush of adrenaline, psychedelics, painkillers, and hallucinogens would turn them into mindless, savage, rabid berserker monstrosities devoid of any higher cognitive reasoning, fueled by a fury that made no distinction between friend or foe for a brief amount of time before their exertion claimed their lives. It was an act of vileness most cruel that left room only for a merciful end for those affected innocents. Half a minute passed, increasing tensions and mental strain as they awaited an attack that could arrive from any direction. Suddenly, a creaking noise, distant at first, reached Declan's ears through his helmet's audio receptors. He looked around, as did many others, while the Akanti, their heads obscured by their helmets, barely moved. But he knew their 6 eyes were frantically moving about, trying to find the source of that strange noise. Another half a minute ticked by, the noise growing in its insistence. It wasn't an artillery strike, as it lacked the distinct whistling sound followed by explosions. They weren't flying drones either, for they had dealt with small swarms and they didn't produce that sound. Not marching feet, engine roars from vehicles or jetpacks, whisking bullets, or the telltale sound of laser or plasma discharges. Sounds like scurrying. "Many scurrying things," a Yukanti suddenly spoke up near him. "Scurrying?" Declan repeated, paying closer attention to the sound echoing all around the area. He could hear it now, that small but noticeable distinction. The pitter-patter, clanging that repeated itself without end. Not a single source, but many overlapping with one another. Growing louder. Coming closer. "Weapons up!" Declan ordered his faithful servants and those around him. Taking heed, they fortified their stances as whatever was making that sound was nearly on top of them. From their left, just around a corner with a turned-over truck, appeared a metallic being. Declan analyzed it in detail. It was slightly over 1/2 meter tall and at least 1.5 meters wide. It balanced itself on 6 legs, with 2 frontal appendages in the shape of blades. One giant, beady black eye protruded from its front where a face should be. The metallic creature, a drone or bot of some kind, had dangling cables connecting its legs and hanging from its underbelly. It was largely gray, but there were symbols and written words on its chassis, and a few decorative pieces that held some unknown meaning. The thing moved around for a moment or two, seemingly directionless before turning toward their position. It then broke into a mad run, its legs carrying it over scattered debris at a blitzing speed. Behind it, dozens more of those same creatures in the shape of what could loosely be related to an arachnid appeared, jumping over the truck as they followed the first one. "Bastards had those things in reserve?" "Combat drones! Open fire! Open fire! They're fast! They're too fast!" Shouts of shock, disgust, recognition, and confusion arose in equal measure a second before the drones were shot at. Declan saw, with horror, as the nibble drones moved not in a straight line, but zigzagged as they approached their objectives. Most bullets bounced off their armored exterior, and lasers left glowing, smoking lines across it, but didn't fall easily. The leading drone collapsed after a laser severed 2 of its right legs, but it kept crawling, ignoring the damage it had sustained as its programming demanded the fulfillment of its orders. Another drone exploded as its armor peeled off and bullets struck its center, crippling 3 other drones around it. 3 auxilia members near the front tossed grenades, but the drones moved away, ignoring them and causing no damage when they exploded. One of the heavy support auxilia fired her grenade launcher, scoring a hit and destroying 2 of the spider drones. More of them exploded and others fell to the ground, their advance reduced to a slow crawl, but by the time they reached the first formation, only a third of their numbers remained fit for combat. A drone leapt at an auxilia, landing on the unfortunate man as he tried to jump to the side, piercing his back, pinning him down. The man screamed in pain as the edges of the drone's front appendages ignited, revealing them to be plasma blades. With a swift movement, it decapitated the screaming auxilia, while at the same time it sliced off the left leg of a Yikanti, firing with its side arm, unloading an entire magazine onto it. Another auxilia approached from behind, carrying a shotgun, and fired at the drone's exposed rear. The drone fell to the ground, crushing the corpse beneath it before exploding, killing the screeching Yikanti and the auxilia who had eliminated it by standing too close to it. A Marine charged forth, plasma axe in hand, as a drone barely missed killing an auxilia with a swing of its plasma blades. With a powerful downward strike, the drone had both its frontal appendages severed before the Marine followed up with a sweep that tore away one of its left legs. The drone turned to the Marine as he was about to deliver a strike to its eye and leapt. The Marine was captured by the drone as it wrapped its remaining legs around him, sending both to the ground. "Help me! Kill this thing! I demand it!" the Marine shouted, and 2 nearby auxilia moved in as he tried in vain to break free. Before they could reach the nobleman, the drone exploded, turning the man into a squall of gore, flying entrails, and charred remains. Salazar Reed gritted his teeth in anger, yet he was still able to give out clear orders. "Crippled them! Avoid shooting their bellies! Proceed with fighting retreats to favorable positions," he ordered as he managed to blind one of the drones. It stopped and spun around, not knowing what to do until laser fire severed 5 of its legs, leaving it defenseless. To his horror, he watched as Dongo had the terrible idea of aiming his flamethrower at a charging drone. The flames wouldn't discourage it. There was no fear to be had. It would be damaged and stopped, but not before its plasma blades butchered Dongo. However, instead of firing, he tossed it at the drone and used his sidearm to fire at the discarded flamethrower as he jumped back. A bullet struck true, and the fuel canister exploded, creating an immense fireball that not only engulfed the drone, but sent it flying to the side a few meters. When it landed covered in flames, 3 legs were missing and its eye was shattered. A few moments later, its payload detonated. A sigh of relief escaped Salazar's lips as the fighting continued. One by one, the last of the drones were destroyed, and those that had been crippled were taken out from a safe distance. By the time everything ended, he ordered a quick recount only to discover that 28 auxilia, including 2 Yikantis and 4 Marines, had perished in the attack. "Where did those things come from, Reed?" asked a nearby Marine. Salazar looked around, half expecting another attack to follow, but there were no signs of the enemy. But he couldn't afford to be careless. "I'm not sure, but their sudden appearance after our communications were compromised can't be a coincidence. These honorless, misbegotten scoundrels surely know by now that their time is running short. I know not why they waited this long to deploy those combat drones, but I doubt that's the last surprise they have on their hands." He then turned to his unit. "Delamere, Cato. Go to Second Sergeant Declan Oakmoon and give him the following orders. Scout ahead from the direction the combat drones came from. Take Yikanti Auxilia with you and report back once enemies are detected or the perimeter is cleared. Go!" Salazar ordered, and the 2 adolescents gave a firm salute before running to deliver the message. He watched the 2 young men break into a run for a few seconds, then gave orders to other units. Declan nodded as the 2 reformed pirate teenagers gave him a salute before scampering off where they came from. "You heard the staff sergeant's orders. Let's move! I'll require 6 Yikanti volunteers to follow me," he asked, looking around. It only took a few seconds for 6 Yikanti to take a step closer to him. "Let's go! Weapons ready," he said, taking point. Once they left the rest of their detachment behind and carefully advanced through the desolate streets, one of the Yikanti approached him. "Sir, a question, if you will?" "Ask. Make it brief," Declan replied without looking down at the smaller alien. "Why do you take orders from a lower rank? In the hierarchy, that'll earn many punishments for the audacity alone," questioned the Yikanti. I was briefed on Principality structure, but never mentioned this. Am I wrong? Is this common? No, it isn't common, Declan replied, his armor sensors unable to detect any near enemy presence. A commander has appointed the staff sergeant as our commanding officer despite his lower rank. That supersedes any standard protocol. I think I understand, sir. Is it like the White Stag you serve under? His orders come first? The Akanti pressed on. Declan didn't reply immediately, but eventually nodded once. Not quite, but similar in execution, he said, then stopped as they neared a corner. With a hand signal, he ordered 2 Ikanti to move ahead. They obeyed, running quickly and silently, using vehicles and large pieces of debris as cover. Suddenly, the Ikanti stopped on their tracks, staring intently at something. He frowned as he saw them shaking before one of them heaved over, removing her helmet as projectile vomit coated the ground. Rushing over to their side, the young Marine turned around the corner only to find a scene most macabre. There were dozens, if not hundreds, of corpses hanging from smoking trees, lampposts, or impaled to the side of vehicles or walls of a large open area that had functioned as a large recreational area of some sort. The corpses had been desecrated with clear signs of torture all over their bodies, or what little remained of them. He noticed, too, that the pirates showed no discrimination in who their victims were to be, as children and even infants were among the hanged and impaled with bolts and harpoons. Worse yet, there were a few living as far as he could distinguish. And as a final note, as if it were the crowning jewel to the massacre before him, dismembered nobles still wearing their gowns and attire, mixed with those who used to be local militia, guard, and garrison forces strewn about, forming a mocking message with their body parts that read, "The Raven falls next. The tomb lies here. Glory to Raven Tomb next to piles of heads without eyes." "Damned they be!" exclaimed Neria as she gripped her shotgun tightly. "Does their cruelty know now bounds?" "Wretches! Monsters! Inhuman barbarians!" muttered Merjan with anger in his voice. "Should we move to aid the living?" asked Stefan at his lord. Declan didn't turn to face his oldest and most loyal servant. His gaze was set on the gruesome scene not too far away from him. Gritting his teeth until his gums hurt, he scanned the nearby buildings, expecting to find signs of an ambush, but saw nothing. "We're turning back. There is nothing left for us here," he said, moving to help the Akanti back on her feet and sealing her helmet back into place. He could only imagine what the smell was like, and he wasn't eager to put his imagination to the test. Several minutes later, Declan finished his report on his findings. Salazar frowned deeply. "Do you believe it to be a trap, Second Sergeant?" Declan nodded. "I do, Staff Sergeant. Perhaps not an ambush, but after what we've seen, I wouldn't doubt the pirates left rigged explosives or drones lying in waiting, ready to spring to action. Or it could be a mere distraction to stop our advance as they move through other paths," remarked another Marine. "They've spilled noble blood and dared insult the Principality. Such an offense must not go unpunished." Salazar felt a laugh echo in his chest. Before his most humbling experience, he would have agreed with his fellow nobleman. Now, he wasn't so sure. Closing his eyes, he weighed his options. Going around the route would prevent them from intercepting potential pirate groups rushing to rejoin the main assaulting positions. But going through it would risk falling into a trap. A few moments later, he opened his eyes. "We can't communicate with the ROSF Vanguard, nor with Captain Deshire. We're mute and nearly blind. Our objectives have shifted in the light of this turn of events. Inform all units that will move to rejoin Captain Deshire's detachment according to their last coordinates," Salazar ordered, receiving a series of silent salutes from the Marines around him. What are they aiming to achieve? He asked himself as he began to move, leading his troops. Fabian Deshire gritted his teeth as the mental strain began to become painful rather than uncomfortable when he fired an explosive round right at a pirate tank. The impact was true on its flank, leaving a huge gap in its hull and destroying its tracks as the Indomitable Fire's anti-missile system shot down a barrage fired from a speeding truck with a missile pod mounted on its back. 3 APCs were firing on his position, hammering his shields to the point of making them flare brightly and near complete collapse. Firing the pulse laser turrets at its assailants, Fabian turned 2 of the APCs into slag. He followed with a volley of missiles aimed at the remaining APC as it tried to run away, but it was too late for it. The missiles struck true, tearing the vehicle apart as it was flipped over, engulfed in flames and reduced to a wreck. He then got an alert coming from the Glorious Assault as its shields collapsed and rockets struck its hull. "Move back, Glorious Assault!" Fabian ordered while simultaneously firing its coil guns at the building that the pirates responsible were using as cover. Red mist mixed with dust as explosions from within toppled the 4-story building. Around him, troops were engaging a large concentration of pirates. The attack had come as almost a complete surprise when the scrambling attack was launched. It began with pirates leaping from buildings with jetpacks and a deluge of heavy weapons fire from various angles all at once. The 2 Mantis tanks had absorbed the bulk of the initial assault, protecting the rest of the infantry. Despite this, casualties were inflicted as well as a few fatalities before any counterattack could be launched. Their swarming drones went on the offensive, eliminating small groups of pirates and any unprotected snipers. The pirates who had started the assault were cut down quickly thanks to the Marines' quick response, revealing they were intending to plant explosive charges on both the Indomitable Fire and the Glorious Assault. APCs, mechanized units, and a few combat tanks arrived next, opening fire and concentrating their attention on the greatest threat. They were determined, if nothing else. At first he thought that their ambush would end in a catastrophic failure. Then came those damnable combat drones. Marines and Auxilia focused their fire on the new enemy, which could withstand considerable punishment before being incapacitated or destroyed. Dutiful Auxilia elements had sacrificed themselves to save their noble betters once their objective was all but evident for all to see. At the cost of nearly 40 lives, the combat drones were all destroyed, but the pirates kept pressing on with suicidal determination. No, not determination. It was something more primal. Their ambush was coordinated, but it lacked deeper planning. An assault launched not with the intent of achieving ultimate victory, but to inflict as much damage as possible with everything they had left at their disposal. It was desperation driven by fear, like a beast choosing to fight now that it had been cornered. But if that was the case, then who or what was the predator? He couldn't find an answer to his question as 3 pirates mounted on hoverbikes had their stealth fields undone right on top of the Glorious Assault. They fired rockets and plasma bolts from their hoverbikes before being turned to slag by its defense turret. However, their attacks landed on the Glorious Assault's exposed right flank. Its missile pod detonated, taking out its defensive turret down with it. Its advance came to a crashing halt as the tank veered to the side, its rear tracks destroyed and half melted by plasma. Finally, small gaps were left on its hull as its heavy armor did its duty in protecting the crew inside. Out of vengeance, the Glorious Assault, still able to rotate its main gun, aimed it at the largest concentration of scum hiding in a captured building. It fired everything at once, coil guns roaring, pulse lasers blasting, and an incendiary shell that consumed dozens of pirates all at once. The battle continued for several minutes until the last standing pirates threw their weapons to the ground and knelt in surrender. The response given was a simple summary execution. Just as he was ready to reorganize his forces, the intelligence division officer called to him. "Sir, I'm detecting movement to our rear." IFF signatures confirm it is Staff Sergeant Salazar Reed's detachment. "Pudent of them to try and rejoin us," Fabian concluded, then hummed deeply. "Are they within range to pierce through the comm scramblers?" "They will be within a minute at their current pace, sir," replied the officer. "Contact Staff Sergeant Reed as soon as he is within range." "Can the Glorious Assault continue on?" he asked, although he feared he already knew the answer to that. "I regret to inform you, sir, that Second Lieutenant Jumaron has concluded that the Glorious Assault, while still combat-capable, will require extensive repairs before it can continue." "Shall we rig it for disposal, sir?" asked the intelligence officer. "Leave it be. We shall strive to retrieve it once this conflict is over," Fabian ordered a moment before he got alerted that another pirate group was almost upon them. "Do their numbers know no end?" he barked in fury, reconnecting in full with the tank system. However, as soon as he did so, he noticed one particularity. The pirates were running in a panic, shooting at something behind them. Before he could issue any orders to intercept the 50 or so pirates pouring out from a ruined street, he saw exactly what they were running from. 3 figures came in hot pursuit, refractory fields flickering as they ran down their prey. The light of plasma swords came to life as they descended upon the fleeing pirates. The 3 figures tore through them with laughable ease. Even the ones wearing exosuits and power armor were powerless against the three figures cleaving them in twain. The slaughter, for he could not call that grotesque spectacle a battle, ended in half a minute with every pirate dead and the three shadowy figures unveiling their stealth fields, revealing themselves to be Royal Marines. One of them turned to face the indomitable fire, and Fabian could have sworn that somehow the Royal Marine was staring him down. With a hand gesture, the Royal Marine told him where their next objective was located. Then they were gone as they broke into a run, only to have their jetpacks launch them into the air, disappearing behind a burning building. "By Julius," the technician uttered. Fabian couldn't agree more. Fabricator Complex, Hidden Data Vault. Milcades frowned as yet another attempt at breaking through the ghost AIs ended in failure. From the moment he had entered the command room and informed Vulramar Gartak that he'd take command of the complex in the name of Princess Clara, he knew that things weren't as simple as he initially thought them to be. His first suspicion was that the Gartak would reveal himself to be a duplicitous bastard, but that suspicion died upon exchanging a brief conversation with the man. The distress in his posture, the fear in his voice, and his stalwart defense of the complex to impede the pirates from entering were genuine. Then there were the three traitors. They'd be interrogated properly later, but after an initial delving into their minds, it revealed exactly what Vulramir had revealed to Clara. Nothing more than idiot nobles with ambitions that far exceeded their capabilities and without the drive to see them fulfilled through service and loyalty. Their end would come and their punishment would be set at his hands, now that he was going to enjoy most thoroughly. But that would come later. He had to focus on breaking through the unleashed ghost AIs and restoring the vault's security systems. And that was the main reason he knew something wasn't right. There was simply no way that a bunch of pirates, no matter how many loosely united systems and planets they had at their disposal, could create and control such devastatingly effective and precise viruses. The encryption keys changed and altered themselves constantly at random, making it nearly impossible to break them apart and kill the awful things. They weren't Principality standard either. The three idiot traitors revealed that they had received the ghost AIs from an envoy sent by Raventomb himself, but didn't know anything else. It was frustrating, ridiculous, and infuriating. Even with three Royal Marines working together, the challenge was astronomical. The code and measures taken were anything like he'd dealt with before. Well, not entirely. There were hints here and there that he'd seen before during his training, but the connection was loose at best, yet nothing else matched it. If he was correct, then that raised so many more questions. Chief among them being how Ezkeradante came into possession of Arabian military-grade ghost AIs. Why use them now? Why hand them over at all? What was he playing at now that his efforts would come crashing down around him? His ilk was being hunted down across the city, and the complex, once on the brink of falling under enemy control, was now secured. If his goal was to seal the vault to prevent the destruction of the facility and the data cores, why would he go to such extremes? It didn't make any sense unless Raventomb's arrogance and narcissism were beyond any sensible measure. Then again, he wouldn't be a pirate lord otherwise. He groaned with satisfaction as he managed to destroy another ghost AI. With each broken, their defenses weakened. It would only be a matter of time to get through all of them. Noir Navio War Room. Cynthia sat across the table from her friend in charge, staring intently at the tactical map. Like her, Clara's gaze was fixed on it, namely on the fighter group moving to intercept the missile barrage launched by Raventomb. With Wyatt leading them, they wondered what his plan was as he set his group directly on a collision path with the missiles. Simultaneously, the Reaper's blade under Donato Lintar was performing admirably as it maintained its distance from both enemy forces whilst providing support to Yasid Kaistan's formation. The result was at long last imminent, and victory would be theirs in that battle. Yet Raventomb moved to secure his own success in the other ongoing battle with the intention to then turn around and finish whatever was left. So far, the Kaistan had paid a most terrible cost, one that was bound to increase before the conflict ended. Whilst the Pirate Lord had lost more than half of his entire fleet, his ground forces were being boxed in on Rankov, cut off from further reinforcements and supplies. Ultimate victory had been denied to him. By now, Raventomb must be aware that his sieging fleet has been destroyed. Why is he still fighting? Clara asked, eyes narrowing. The prize he is after drives him forth. Even a coward the likes of that miserable parasite can fight against his instincts if there's still a chance to claim such a great bounty, Cynthia answered, a smile spreading across her lips as, suddenly, Wyatt and his fighter group changed direction right as they were about to collide with the enemy missiles. A second later, the missile barrage was heavily reduced in numbers as nearly every missile veered off course or detonated in short order. He created a sensor baffler cloud using their flares, Clara deduced quickly, as what little remained would be easily destroyed by Caiston PD turrets and fighters. However, her usual enthusiasm was absent, supplanted by the cold focus she used during diplomatic meetings. "You don't sound thrilled," said Cynthia in a gentle tone. "I am beyond myself. Once victory is achieved, I shall relish watching the video and tactical recordings." "Not before," Clara countered, eyes narrowing dangerously. "The dangers of our neighbors are known." "Understood. Expected, you could be so bold as to say. The hierarchy with their indifference and posturing. The Arabians and their duplicitous, unrest-brewing schemes. The Drazen with their arrogance and unshakable sense of superiority. The others? Too preoccupied to meddle in the affairs of an incompetence-bloated sector of space far removed from themselves as to be irrelevant." A single chuckle filled with pain and frustration escaped the confines of her lips. A wildcard such as Raventomb is capable of many things, many terrible things. Conjuring the mental capacity to envision the devastation he would have incurred if we had not intervened is an exercise in pessimism and fatalism, she said, her gaze set on the pirate flagship. "Perhaps, should I grip harder, Cynthia? This damn succession dispute is chipping away at the Principality's strength. More than half a year has passed since it began. How much longer will it last? A year? 2? 5? What will be the tipping point that will shift this conflict into a civil war that will claim countless lives?" Cynthia stared at her friend for long, silent moments, then spoke as softly and gently as she could, carrying the warmth of familiarity, comfort, and wise counsel. "You are my princess, Clara. I will obey you even if I don't support your decisions," she smiled tenderly. "Mine is not the voice that carries the wisdom of Tobias Winfield, but I can say this to you. Keep your grip loose and the key around your neck. You will never be able to dictate the actions of all around you in accordance with your machinations." "You will not be able to," she finished in a heavier tone, yet still comforting. "We've lost so much already, Cynthia. In exchange for what? Duty? The security of our nation? Its continued existence? Joy's forsaken blood stains our hands." She paused, both their expressions growing distant for a moment. Relationships broken, potential allies lost, friendships forgotten, buried, and turned to ashes. "'Tis a weight I desire upon no one," Clara sighed, and the coldness around her diminished considerably. With a matching smile, she replied, "What I would do without you, Cynthia." Cynthia chuckled. "Forgive me, for I cannot fathom an answer to that." Silence returned, settling between them for long, glacially slow passing moments until they received a priority message from Redford. Accepting it, a screen lowered itself from the ceiling. It turned on, revealing Esket Raventomb Adante sitting in front of what appeared to be a view screen while an unusually animated music played in the background. He was wearing the same attire from last time, but he was... "Is he smiling?" asked Cynthia, puzzled. "And what is the purpose of that annoying song?" "Grab a wrench, grab some tape. Fix the skiff before it breaks. Engines sputter, doors won't close. We got plans that no one knows. Skiff crew, skiff crew. We'll fix it till it flies. Skiff crew, with junk we improvise." The song, which would otherwise have been catchy, only served to confuse the two women and further confound them as they realized that Raventomb was bobbing his head to the rhythm and lip-syncing the lyrics by heart. The ridiculous spectacle was made worse when the pirate lord joined his voice to the song. "Patch it, match it, clip it too. I've got a terrible plan and it just might do." Raventomb finished the song with a radiant smile on his face, then, seemingly only then, caught the camera's attention, delivering his message. "Oh, how terribly inconsiderate of me," he exclaimed, full of joy, and the screen in front of him went black. "You'll have to forgive me. You wouldn't believe how hard it is to acquire Skiff Crew episodes all the way from the Albion Federation. This was a new episode and, well, let's just say I got carried away." Esket stood up and turned completely to face the camera. Now then, I must congratulate you personally, Redford Kalen. Or do you prefer Vorpal Strike like the snobbish, pretentious asswipe that you are? He chuckled. I can see your face right now. How does he know? How indeed. Simple, you raven taint liquor. Who else would move for a decapitating strike with such voracious hunger? Andrew Cayston, perhaps. Maybe a Valto or a Wonder, with any luck an Arnav. But those failures aren't you, Vorpal Strike, he said, clicking his tongue and moving his index finger in a no gesture repeatedly. But you're not alone, are you? Oh no. I see that you've got yourself a protege. And here I thought you had finally produced a worthwhile heir, unlike the failures you call your offspring. Then again, I'm surprised you reproduced at all. I always thought you were too busy eating Aster shit to do anything else. His joking, insulting tone shifted abruptly. His smile disappeared, and his eyes became the voids they'd seen the first time. Two assholes, in fact, are under your wing. Osgar von Sniffelgotch and Wyatt Staples. I wonder how many times it took the first one visiting your bed to get his posting. The second, though? He's got my attention! His lips curled into a cruel smirk, and he raised his left arm to point at the camera. What a son of a bitch you are. You're the one leading your fighter wing, is he not, Kalen? What am I even saying? He is. Listen, kid, you have talent. You have guts. And you're no damn blue blood. Surprised I know you're not a noble? Pleased with the way you move in that fighter. The way you're talked about? That's a commoner right there. You're wasting your potential by serving the Asters. You could be so much more. With your talent and drive, you could even replace me in the future or ascend as a new pirate lord yourself. Set yourself free, break your chains. What has your misguided loyalty to the principality gotten you, eh? You could have been so much more. His smirk dropped, and as before, he extended his cape to simulate spread wings. As for the rest of you, I am Raventomb. Come and face me, Vorpal Strike. I will be your end this day. Bring that black ship closer. Bring it to me. I shall reduce it to nothing alongside everyone aboard. With a final mocking bow, his smile widened. And if the Aster bitch is with you, well, breeding stock will always be useful. The transmission ended, leaving the two women in an absolute silence that lasted 3 full seconds. Unleash me, my princess, Cynthia claimed with barely contained fury. I shall bring his broken but still living carcass back for you to extinguish his unworthy life. I promise not to fulfill your request, Clara said in a much controlled tone. More pressingly, my beloved Cynthia, don't you agree that we should first ensure that a certain pilot of mine doesn't attempt to board a vessel by himself again? The blue-haired bodyguard couldn't refute her.